Okay, so one of the parts of the design is, and the installation and everything is a template. So what I'm going to do, this is a template this is my go-to template, designed in SketchUp, of course. And then I run this on the CNC. Now this one's set up for my 3-hole tenon, the one that I get laser set and done on laser. So I've got the holes are spaced at different, a little different spaces. I think on these, I think it's 9/16 center to center. So if I go from there to there, yep, 9/16. And then again, it's only for a 3-hole. And then this is for the mortising with a router. And this is a little bit over 3/4, but this is set up for a 5/8. So I'm going to go 5/16, which is half of that. And then I'm going to go do the same thing here, 5/16. And I know that this works really, really well. It makes, when I mortise with the router, it works like perfectly. So now some of these holes, some of these are set up for different size oddball materials. So I need more space for this larger tenon. And that's one of the reasons I went to smaller tenons, so I could go to smaller components, right? But so I'm going to get rid of those. But I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and then I'm also going to get some dimensions. But I want to keep this guy here, this guy, and this guy, because those are actually peepholes for seeing marks on the wood to help you center it if you need to center it, if it doesn't automatically take care of it on some of the guides. So, but this is all set up with this guide from here to there is all set up. I've got it dimensioned down here at 3 inches. So if by putting a 1/4 inch, I'll show you that in the video, but by basically putting a 1/4 inch piece of plywood in there, in each of those, then it fits anything that's a perfect 3 inch. Same thing with here, I've got 4.5, those are common dimensions, and then it can also go the other way. So I'm going to keep all of that just as is. If I can, I may have to get rid of this guy here. We'll see. Okay, and again, I just did a quick measurement, and from here to out here it's the 1.5, right? So my tenon is already going to be 3 inches because we went to a larger tenon to do it yourself. So this one, this has got to go for sure. I'm not going to be able to do a center peephole there, but I could go ahead and I'll just move it over. I don't think we're going to have to need it too often, but let's just do it anyhow. And I want to keep it on some sort of perspective, so I'm going to move it over to there-ish. That's not lined up with anything other than it's lined up centered this way. Okay, then this is going to have to go because the tenon is going to bump into it, and so would the router, and so this has got to go. So basically what I'm left with is a 3-inch material. I still can go with 3-inch material this way, but I can only go with a jig that's going to be set up that way. And again, if I were setting this jig up for all kinds of other possibilities, I would do just that, and I would probably use pins and stuff like that. I'd figure out some way to do it. But the next thing I need to do is, again, this was set up for a tenon that's 1 3/4, and half of that is 7/8. So I'm going to type in 7/8. Did it show? There it is. Okay. And then the same thing going this way, 7/8. And so what I need to do is I'm going to stick with everything that I got going right here because it works, except I need to expand it for the larger tenon. All right, so I just kind of thought that through, and here's the deal. Again, this goes out to 7/8, right? But the new tenon, the half of the length of a 3-inch tenon is 1.5. So I'm going to go out to 1.5, so 1.5, enter. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, 1.5, enter. I don't trust that one. I'm going to do it again. 1.5, enter. There we go. I can get rid of this. That's going to confuse me. And so what I've got is the distance basically from here at 7/8 to that, which is 5/8 of an inch. So if I double click, so I'm in the edit mode, and I grab all of this and then I go from what is right here, my 7/8 endpoint basically, and I drag that out to there. Then I do the same thing on this end. I'm going to have to get rid of this because I have a feeling that might bump in. I don't think I'm going to really need it anyhow. So I'm doing the same thing. I selected all, oops, I want to make sure I selected that whole, all those arcs. Now I'm going to hit M, and I'm going to grab that point that's 7/8, I think it's 7/8 out. Is that the one? Make sure. Yep, that's the one. So I still have everything selected. I do. Grabbing it right at that point, and I'm taking it out to there. So now I should have not only the distance to add it for the tenon, but when you're routering and you're going to have a guide in there, you have to have an extra space for that itself. And the only way you can really know on this, you can ballpark it, and then you got to go out, run a CNC, and then test it. So same thing here, going in the other direction. Again, I was out to 5/16, and I needed to go to 5/16. I need to, it's going to be a 3/4, half of that is 3/8. So I'm going to go to 3/8, 3/8, and there's my line in there somewhere. It's not that easy to find. I'm selecting now everything going that direction, and I'm going to go from where it did end before out to right there. We'll see if we have it. And then I need to do the same thing in the other direction. So again, right now the halfway point, half of a 5/8 inch wide tenon is 5/16, but half of a 3/4 inch tenon is 3/8. So now I put it there, and again I'm going to select from left to right, not right to left, right there. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to make sure I keep my accuracy. And that point right there, I'm taking it out to there, which expanded that in that direction. So theoretically right now, I have a couple of things. I have the correct amount of space, which is, I'm going to do edit, delete guides. So right now I have a distance that's 3 and plus or minus 3/16. So it's adding about 3/16 to the length of a 3-inch tenon, and that's accounting for that. That's what's there to account for the bearing, or not the bearing, but the guide, that copper guide on the outside of the bit on the router. And then the same thing going this direction. I need 3/4 to finished, but I'm going to end up having to go out to almost 15/16, so it's a plus or minus on that. So I think I'm set up on that with the router. And again, the only way to find out now is to test it. Now then, the other part we've got is mounting, and mounting the tenons on the ends. You're typically going to be on the ends of the boards. And so right now I have this set up for 1 inch, and I've got my dimensions out there. Though these 3 holes for the 3-hole tenon are set up with this right here. If I put the 1/4 inch MDF in there, or the 1/4, whatever I have available as a guide, then I'm set up for 1 inch thick material, 3 inch thick material, and 4.5 inch, which covers a lot. And so it's pretty much everything that I do. And when I design, I try to design to that. I don't design to 1 1/4 or to 3 1/8 or something, because then the templates don't fit. You know what I mean? So what I need to do is get rid of this one, because that right now is, I want to keep the center one, by the way. That's 9/16, and I don't want 9/16 because that's set up for a different size, a different hole setting on tenons. So what I want to do is just borrowing some sort of parallel line here. Now I'm going to get rid of, I don't want this line out here. I'm going to get rid of that. Now I want to start from scratch. I've got 1/2. If you recall, we set up a 1/2 inch spacing between all of the holes on this DIY tenon, and so I'll have 1/2 there, 1/2, enter, and there's other ways to do this, but I'll go ahead and this way. Now what I've got, as long as and then let's see what I have for hole size. Do I have 7? That should be 1/4, yes, okay. So the quarter is for a hinge bit, and I'll show you that in everything else that we do, but it's a hinge bit that goes in here and makes a dimple. So all you do is go out 1/8, enter. Here, 1/8, enter, because that's the radius of a 1/4 inch circle. 1/8, enter, and again, I could have like made one and then made copies of it, stuff like that. 1/8, enter. And then just as a way of handling this to keep my sanity, I fill the inside with red. It just tells me when I get to the CNC that that's a full through hole. And I'm going to go to use the same red that I had on the other one. So I pick up this one here. I paint the inside of that red, 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 red. And let's just see here once. I have to look at one other thing. Okay, it's getting cluttered with lines, and I'm going to do edit, delete guides, because I don't think I need those, and if I do, I'll make some more. But basically, this is set up that right now, where there's a space between, I'll go to center, and then I'll take it out to where the pin would be plugged in right there. It's set up to handle 3-inch height. Well, I have a 3-inch tenon, and so a 3-inch tenon would not typically be put on a 3-inch height like an I-beam or a board, because then there would be no reveal, no shoulder on those two ends. So we're basically going to have to assume that on a 5-inch, or excuse me, a 3-inch long tenon, that we're going to be going to boards that are longer than 3 inches. So it can be 3 1/4 or whatever. So I'm going to pick a number here, and I think what I'm going to do is say, let's go to 4.5, because that's a really common length for me. So half of 4.5 is 2 1/4, so 2.25, enter. And then I'll do the same thing the other way, 2.25, enter. And this one, this one is for some other reason. Won't go into that. But what I am going to do is let's just see where these guys are all set up for. These guys are set up for, actually, were they all set up for that? No, they're already set up for 2 1/4. So I'm all set up for 2 1/4, but they're pretty far out, and it's more like beams or something. So what I'm going to do is just take this one that I can't use anymore because it's too close and there wouldn't be a shoulder. I'm going to hit M. I'm going to go right to where that endpoint is, and then I'm just going to push it out to there. And if I look, I pushed it out 13/16, so let's just see what I've got. I have 2 1/4, that's what I want there. And then this one here, same thing. I'm going to, I'm using a 3/8 inch plug on this. There's a 1/4 inch inside and then a 3/8 outside, and there's a reason for that I'll go through in the demos. But I'm going to use a 3/8 inch dowel to do all the markings. So I'm good to go on that. I don't need these guys anymore. So let's just get rid of them, otherwise it's just going to be kind of confusing. And I'm set to go on a 4.5 inch automatic, but that said, if I have a peak hole in here that I can look and use a mark on the wood instead to find center, then I can go to any distance. So I can go to 8 inch, 12 inch, 9 37/15 or something like that, right? So I'm going to make a peak hole that's going to show up, and I'm going to try to get it in between there. So what do I want to do? Let's just try going to 3/8, enter. That might not work, but let me draw the circle first, and we'll see what we can do. So I'm going to draw a circle right here, C. I'm just ballparking a spot, and the smallest I can go is 1/4, because the bit on a router is 1/4, so that's 1/4. I'm sorry, that's 1/8 radius, enter. All right, so I made it in there without doing any damage to anything else here. So let's just find the center of that circle, and that was at a 1/4 inch, or plus or minus a 1/4. So let's move it up to some sort of, there are 15 or 5/16. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to move it up right to there. And that way I've got some sort of reasonable denomination, 5/16 to that spot. And I do want that to be a full through which tells that I want to go, when I go to the CNC, I want it to be able to look at it and go full through. So there I need to go to my color and pick that. That tells me when I get to doing the CNC program and VCarve that I've got that. So that, again, that's a peak hole. I'm getting a lot of lines going on there. Edit, delete guides. And I think that is my template. And the only way that I'm going to know if it works or not, in fact, I'm going to get rid of that dimension there because we don't use that anymore. We don't use this dimension anymore. I do have the 4.5. And then, just for what it's worth, this is already, the board is, I think, 5.5 should be. Yep, that's 5.5. So we can work on 5.5 stuff without putting any pins at all. So we have access to 4.5 and 5.5 as far as already set to go, but otherwise we'll just use that center pin. And I think that's good to go. I'm going to do a save. So I do a file, save as. I like to do incrementals. So that was version number 1. I'm going to do 02. I'm going to say save. But because I'm going to go to VCarve with it, VCarve, at least the version that I have, it doesn't understand SketchUp Pro like 2022 and so on. So I have to do a file, save as, but then I need to go down here and I need to do the drop down and I need to change it to SketchUp 2017. Again, maybe I just didn't upgrade my VCarve. I haven't kept up with that as much as I probably should. So I'm going to save it, but it's saving it as a 2017, and that way VCarve will read it. It wants to know if I want to replace the file. I'm going to say no right now because I'm actually going to change the name of this file so it's not the same as the one I just saved in 2022. So it's VCarve. This way it tells me what I did and why. Now I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so that's it for the SketchUp part of this, and then the next video that I'm going to do, and I'll post it on the same Instructable, is bringing this into VCarve and then setting up the toolpaths for that.